crisis in the Taiwan Strait. President Tsai Ing-wen warns that if the country falls to China, there will be catastrophic consequences. Facebook fail. A massive global outage shuts down the social media network and its offshoots Instagram and WhatsApp for 7 hours. A nod from New Zealand. It's become the latest country to approve Taiwan's Medigen vaccine for visitors. And into the wild, we introduce you to Mulas, a rescued Formosan black bear who is back where she belongs. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. President Tsai Ing-wen has warned of catastrophic consequences for peace in Asia if Taiwan fell to China. In a piece for Foreign Affairs published on Tuesday, she also said Taiwan would do whatever it takes to defend itself. Her comments come as China is ramping up incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. William Yen has our first report.
A Chinese Shenyang J-16 tandem-seat twin-jet multi-role strike fighter is seen flying into Taiwan's southwestern ADIZ. The fighter was among 56 military aircraft that breached Taiwan's southwestern ADIZ Monday, a new record for incursions in a single day since the Defense Ministry started publicizing figures.
台湾一定要警觉，中国是越来越过分了，我们一定要增强自己。 团结一起，增强国力。
台湾西南空域高度6900公尺的中共军机注意，你已进入我 ADIZ。
Taiwan continues to scramble planes, issue radio warnings, and mobilize ground defenses during Chinese incursions. But the surge in recent days has led to a renewed sense of urgency. Taiwan's foreign minister spoke to Australian media to call for intelligence sharing and security cooperation with like-minded countries.
The defense of Taiwan is in our own hands, and we are absolutely committed to that. And if China is going to launch a war against Taiwan, we will fight to the end, and that is our commitment.
The United States also affirmed its support for Taiwan and expressed concern about Chinese military activity near the island.
Well, we remain concerned by the People's Republic of China's provocative military activity near Taiwan, which is destabilizing, risks miscalculations, and undermines regional peace and stability. We urge Beijing to cease its military, diplomatic, and economic pressure and coercion against Taiwan, and we have an abiding interest in peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. That's why we will continue to assist Taiwan in maintaining a sufficient self-defense capability.
While China increases pressure on Taiwan, 3 aircraft carriers, 2 American and 1 British, were among an armada of 17 warships from 6 countries that trained together over the weekend in the Philippine Sea. The UK carrier strike group on Monday published a tweet saying that a fleet led by the HMS Queen Elizabeth had passed from the Philippine Sea through the Luzon Strait in preparation for an exercise with the Singapore Navy in the South China Sea. Analysts say military exercises by Taiwan-friendly countries near the island could explain China's increased activity in recent days.
The PLA's Warplanes conduct exercise in the southwest and even the southeast airspace of Taiwan. It means that very clear the PLAF try to show their capability or muscle. They can attack what the aircraft carrier strike group or warship from the Philippine Sea who try to enter to the South China Sea.
Su also reiterated international calls for Beijing to maintain regional stability.
The Beijing PLA military choose such so-called hard power as tools. I don't think it's good for the regional security and peace. So I think Beijing might rethink such approach.
With Taiwan gaining more support on the international stage, it remains to be seen if the incursions by PLA warplanes will continue. Patrick Chen and William Yen for TaiwanPlus.
US Trade Representative Catherine Tai is calling out China for what she says are unfair trade practices. She says Chinese government subsidies make it impossible for US companies to compete globally. Tai, whose parents emigrated to the US from Taiwan, also accused Beijing of failing to honor pledges made to the Trump administration. These included buying more US goods and services to rebalance the trade deficit between the US and China. She says the Biden administration will seek new talks with Beijing, but did not rule out tariffs if China continues to block fair competition.
These policies have reinforced a zero-sum dynamic in the world economy, where China's growth and prosperity come at the expense of workers and economic opportunity here in the U.S. and other market-based democratic economies. But above all else, we must defend to the hilt our economic interests. And that means taking all steps necessary to protect ourselves against the waves of damage inflicted over the years through unfair competition.
Japan's new Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has called a general election for October 31st. Kishida made the announcement on his first day after taking over from Yoshihide Suga. The former foreign minister said the COVID pandemic will be the top priority for his government, as well as security threats from China and North Korea. Kishida has made sweeping changes to the cabinet, but has retained the defense and foreign ministers. Analysts say the move shows continuity in foreign policy that Japan's allies will welcome.
In terms of cabinet members, Kishida himself, he was foreign minister when Abe Shinzo, the former prime minister, announced his Indo-Pacific strategy, which has now been adopted by Australia, US, UK. That's now the mantra of free Asia against Beijing. Kishida himself was foreign minister when that policy was launched. And right now, it looks like a lot of continuity. I mean, Kishida himself is a known quantity, and that he's going to keep Foreign Minister Motegi and Defense Minister Kishi in their positions. So that's good for the U.S. in terms of who we deal with, and it's also very good for Taiwan because Defense Minister Kishi has said that Japan's security is directly tied to Taiwan's security. So anytime you have a friend like that in Tokyo, it's certainly good news. So I think the appointments so far bode very well for Washington and for Taipei.
Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has apologized for the chaos and frustration felt around the world caused by a 6-hour outage. Billions of users couldn't access their Facebook, Messenger, Instagram and WhatsApp services and scrambled towards other sources for their content. The social media giant said in a blog post that the outage was due to a faulty configuration change. Jaime Ocon connects us to the story.
Did you try turning your device on and off again? Still not working? Well, you weren't alone. All Facebook services, including the social media site, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, experienced a 6-hour outage Monday that prevented almost 3.5 billion users from accessing their accounts. Almost immediately, users took to rival social media platform Twitter to find out what was happening.
So first we looked a little bit into it, and it looked like it's an issue with the DNS, the Domain Name Resolution Protocol. So we couldn't really get there, but seems like the issue might even be one step further down, which is the BGP, the Border Gateway Protocol, which is basically the foundation of where you want to do some routing on the internet.
As each service began updating their users on the status of their servers, a bigger concern was developing. One company was responsible for it all: Facebook. The outage comes amid rising concerns about the monopolization of social media, and shortly after a whistleblower said that Facebook was prioritizing profit over public good. As Nayat So and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Now there's good news for those vaccinated with Taiwan's domestically produced COVID-19 vaccine, Medigen. New Zealand is the latest country to say that it will place the shot on a list of approved vaccines for visitors. Sandy Chi has the details.
Starting November 1st, non-citizens visiting New Zealand will need to provide proof that they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 in order to enter the country. Local authorities have released a list of 22 approved vaccines, including those from AstraZeneca, BioNTech, Moderna, and Taiwan's Medigen. Meanwhile, in Taiwan, another hospital is under investigation for incorrectly preparing vaccine doses. Following a scandal involving undiluted BioNTech vaccine last week, this time it's the AstraZeneca vaccine. A hospital in Taichung was found to have underdosed over 40 patients, with each receiving only 1/5 of the necessary amount.
他就是疏忽了，把应该打0.5看成打0.1，是这样的。
Affected patients were provided with an extra jab and no adverse reactions have been reported. The hospital faces a fine up to 250,000 Taiwan dollars for its mistake. It has promised to conduct a full review into the incident. Chris Ma and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, Singapore's parliament has passed an anti-foreign interference law that critics say may be used to crush dissent. Stay with us.
Hello, Taiwan. I'm Dr. Jane Goodall. I'm so very happy to see Taiwan sharing its wonderful stories with the world. I've been fortunate enough to visit Taiwan on many occasions, and I've been to several different parts of the country. So I know firsthand something of the beauty of its wildlife and the marvelous people who are working to save these places. So good luck with this wonderful program.
And I want to know, what do you want to see more of on TaiwanPlus?
Hello, I'm Fabio Grandjean. Taiwan to the world, see you on TaiwanPlus.
Congratulations to TaiwanPlus.
Hello, Taiwan. I'm Mike Yamashita, National Geographic photographer. My stories have been as varied as the landscape itself, from Taiwan's top 10 tourist attractions to oolong tea, aquaculture, and the Taiwanese fishing industry, and most recently, the Daija Mazu pilgrimage. From TaiwanPlus, I would like to see stories on more of the same, about the varied cultural and historical aspects of the country.
Taiwan to the world, see you on TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan to the world, see you on TaiwanPlus.
Hello, Taiwan. I'm Baron Wanga, and greetings to you all from my humble homeland of Nauru. It's a worthwhile and appropriate platform whereby the unique perspectives of the people of Taiwan are portrayed and presented honestly. Taiwan to the world. See you on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back to TaiwanPlus News. A reminder of our top story. President Tsai Ing-wen has warned if Taiwan were to fall to China, there would be catastrophic consequences for peace in Asia. Her comments come as China has flown 149 planes into Taiwan's ADIZ. Singapore's parliament has passed an anti-foreign interference law that critics say threatens the press and civil society. The ruling People's Action Party says the Foreign Interference Countermeasures Bill, or FICA, is a necessary defence against increasing threats from abroad. It will give the government the power to force social media service providers and those who run websites to disclose user information, block content and remove applications. Journalists, activists and academics say it may be used to crush dissent. TaiwanPlus reporter Ryan Hoko-Patrick spoke with Singaporean journalist and activist Kirsten Han. He began by asking how FICA threatens civil liberties.
This FICA bill is really very worrying for civil society and independent media because it grants such wide powers to the government to issue directions and to essentially be able to shut down online outlets. So for instance, if they suspect that you're acting on behalf of a foreign principal, which is defined incredibly broadly, they can issue you orders to take down content or publish government messages. And then after you issue an order, they can also prescribe your website as an online location, in which case financing the website will become illegal. So you can't ask for donations and people can't donate to you. You can't run it as a business. So that would actually kill independent media outlets. Civil society organizations are also worried about being designated as politically significant, which would then expose them to a lot more reporting obligations to the government.
Singaporean officials have pushed through this legislation very rapidly, citing forward meddling as an imminent threat to Singapore, which they say is uniquely vulnerable to foreign interference. Do you think this threat assessment is accurate or is it overblown?
I think there are genuine concerns about foreign influence in Singapore, and there are particular vulnerabilities that we might have, but it's not clear to me at least how FICA will actually deal with all these things in a proportionate way as well. And so the government is not being very transparent on exactly what they think the threat is, and they have also a policy of not naming foreign countries. So they say because we're a small country and we have other foreign policy considerations, they don't actually name or call out other countries. So we don't really know exactly what it is that they are worried about.
Do you think this is part of a broader regional trend curbing press freedom and civil liberties?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just very convenient for governments to use national security and political sovereignty as rhetoric to curb civil liberties and conveniently crush dissent. We see it in other countries, like the national security law in Hong Kong. There were some comparisons that came up when the FICA bill was being discussed. I think in Thailand, they were also considering passing laws that would limit foreign funding for NGOs. So these are just different ways to kind of squeeze civil society and make it harder for activists to operate. And I think when they can kind of couch it as, oh, this is for public safety, this is for national security, it's just one way that they try to sell it to the public and the international community.
Venezuela says it will reopen its border with Colombia after a closure lasting nearly 3 years. The border was shut by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in February 2019 as the Venezuelan opposition, backed by Colombia and the US, attempted to bring humanitarian aid into the country. Maduro rejected the aid, fearing it was the beginning of a US-led invasion. Political infighting at the time had led to hyperinflation, water shortages and widespread blackouts. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has been sworn in for a second term amid concerns over his government's handling of unrest in the northern Tigray region. The ceremony in Addis Ababa comes after Abiy's landslide victory in June's election. Abiy won despite high unemployment and months of fighting in Tigray. Thousands have died since the conflict erupted almost a year ago. The UN says hundreds of thousands of people are facing famine in the region. In his address at his swearing-in, the Nobel Peace Laureate promised an inclusive government, but he condemned the government's opponents in Tigray.
በሰሜኑ የሀገራችን ክፍል በክህደትና በእብሪት የተጠነሰሰው ግጭት ባሳለፍነው ዓመት እንደ ሀገር እጅግ ከባድ ዋጋ አስከፍሎናል። ይህ ግጭት ጥቂት ግለሰቦች እኛ የማንቆጣጠራት እንዳሻን የማናሸራት ሀገር ልትኖር አይገባም ብለው የቀሰቀሱት ጦርነት ነው።
Now, a ship's anchor could be to blame for a massive oil spill that's seen some 126,000 gallons of heavy crude oil leak into the ocean off Southern California. The city of Huntington Beach, south of Los Angeles, is bearing the brunt of the disaster, with the mayor describing it as an environmental catastrophe. On Monday, boats placed booms in the water to contain the spill. Elsewhere, vets are continuing to urgently treat local wildlife affected by the spill. Thailand is struggling to contain its outbreak, fueled by the highly contagious Delta variant. Healthcare services are stretched, further damaging a battered economy. Even Buddhist monks are donning personal protective equipment over their distinctive robes to join the battle.
The additional layers on the robes are a new calling for these monks in Thailand. The personal protective equipment, a necessity in the evolution of their service in a world ravaged by the pandemic.
นี้เรารักษาหายแล้วร่วม200 กว่าคนก็ถือว่าการได้ช่วยเหลือคน1 ชีวิตก็เป็นสิ่งที่มีค่า
Pramaha Bombong puts on his armor to join the battle against the pandemic. In the Bangkok heat, the monk expertly collects samples for rapid COVID tests. Those waiting for results sit anxiously as their tests are placed neatly on the ground. The team of monks service the area around the temple Wat Suti-Wararam twice a day to help with health checkups, food and medication delivery. In April, Thailand was hit by its third and most severe wave of COVID-19. It devastated the health services. Medical supplies were running short, and there were no beds available in hospitals. The monks from Wat Suti-Wararam stepped up to fill the gaps in the medical system.
ศาสนาหรือว่าพระสงฆ์ในพระพุทธศาสนานั้นเนี่ยอยู่ได้เพราะประชาชนอยู่ได้เพราะญาติโยมในการดูแลอาหารตลอดจนที่อยู่อาศัยคือพระสงฆ์เนี่ยได้รับความอนุเคราะห์จากญาติโยมจากประชาชนดังนั้นเมื่อประชาชนเนี่ยได้รับผลกระทบในภาวะวิกฤตโควิด -19 เช่นนี้ทางวัดก็อยากเป็นส่วนหนึ่งในการช่วยเหลือสังคมในการตอบแทนสังคม
For the monks, it's all about the cycle of giving. They say their participation in the front lines to help communities survive the pandemic is also a blessing for them and a chance to help the community when it needs them the most. Asnaya Zhou and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Friendship is a word that springs to mind for many Taiwanese when thinking about the relationship between Taiwan and Japan. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the cultural and creative industries, with generations of talent from both countries serving as mutual inspiration. That trend is set to continue during a festival opening in Tokyo. TaiwanPlus reporter Sandy Chi has more.
An animated flower blooming to reveal the Chinese character for Thai, as in Taiwan. It's just one of the features for the new Taiwan Now Festival running here and in Japan until the end of the year.
台湾跟日本两边的友谊呢，最好的连结真的还是要透过艺术
除了台湾以外，还有谁这么挺我们？我们也一定要跟台湾一起，在台湾进行很多活动来汇报台湾。
One highlight is Aphrodite Orchid, a new Taiwanese opera created in collaboration with Japanese artist Yanagi Miwa. It's co-performed by 3 of the nation's largest Taiwanese opera troupes.
透过这样子的一个艺术计划的一个精神，能够共结一朵繁盛之花的这样子的一个概念呢，希望大家可以共好跟共享。
This festival, which can be watched online, will feature drama, modern art and music to showcase Taiwan's connections with Japan. Asnaya Zhou and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
A documentary released this week tells of the rescue and release of an endangered Formosan black bear cub called Mulas. She has spent about 10 months in training to make sure she is fully prepared for being in the wild. Ken Ning has more.
Through training, the Formosan black bear Mulas learns how to forage for food, a skill she will need to survive when she returns to the wild. 2 years ago, Mulas was found as a cub in a rural village of Taidong County in eastern Taiwan. A local resident rescued her when she was being chased by dogs. After 10 months of care and training, Mulus was released back into the wild in May 2020.
照养的过程当中，我们有监控他的健康状态啊，然后对于他的野化训练，然后甚至帮他做一些陌生人的驱避训练，让他回到野外的时候是不会跟人是亲近的，是有就是不会有太亲密的连结在。
During her time in care, Mulus grew from a 4-kilogram cub to a 42-kilo adolescent. When released into the central mountain range, she was fitted with a GPS tracking collar that sent back valuable data from the habits of Formosan black bears.
Mulus 他在这1年中大概的路线我们可以很快看到一开始做很大的一个扩展，之后呢非常密集的集中活动在一个区域，在这整的追踪了405天的过程之中。 有4374的 GPS 的定位，它的成功率呢将近186%。
This week, the Forestry Bureau released a documentary of the bear story called Mulus Kulumaha. It hopes the film will teach the public more about the lives of Formosan black bears and help in the future conservation of this vulnerable species. Damon Lin and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus. We leave you with images of the Scottish mountains, where 81-year-old climber Nick Gardner is scaling peaks to raise money in honour of his wife who has Alzheimer's. Stay safe and see you next time.